Franklin Paddock was not the usual doctor, you might say, but he saw this. He was our family doctor growing up in Pittsfield. He saw this painting and he said, "Oh my goodness, I could tell everything about her. I mean, the slipping of the fascia in here, the degree of arthritis in each finger." Let's talk about Mimi Scherb. Which in point of fact, painting-wise, is the first of these life-size figures, nude or clothed, in which I feel I had my whole act pulled together. I knew where I was at, and she is the beginning of a series of paintings. Mimi was an amazing model. I painted her first at the Art Students League, and I had her as a student. I remember her as being a very, very strict and very proper about the etiquette of being a model. You don't take your clothes off in front of the class. You go behind the screen, you come out, and if somebody comes into the studio, as they often did at the league, to just visit a class or to see a class, if there was anything that's slightly untoward happening, Mimi would get off the model stand and just leave. She was thoroughly professional as a model, and it turns out that she had been in some 60 movies in Hollywood doing bit parts, dancing and acting. I think the biggest role she had was in Olivia de Havilland's The Snake Pit. But she came to New York. Her husband, Milton, she and her husband in Queens started a small camera store. And Milton had a bad heart. He was sickly, so Mimi modeled. And I've never seen anybody model more without complaint. Hours, perhaps working morning and afternoon at the League and then going to the Brooklyn Museum Art School in the evening, that kind of thing, or to Queens or whatever. And I really learned to paint the nude with her. Now, what happened here is I had been in the Berkshires all summer, but before, in the spring, in the late spring, I had Mimi for a high school class, a scholarship class I taught at the art school. And Mimi was the picture of grief. Her husband, Milton, whom she dearly loved, and I worked with her in the Berkshires too. I mean, when I say I learned to paint the nude with her, it wasn't just in art school, it was working with her afterwards. I've probably 10 paintings of her before this. And I said, well, Milton had died, and I said, "Mimi, let's do a painting in the fall." And we did, and that's this painting. Grief had modified to resignation in this painting. We worked on it. Well, what more can I tell you about her? She had the most beautiful skin tones, I think, virtually, I think, of anyone I've ever seen. Greens and golds and silvers and all kinds of different things going on. Mimi always said she was French, but, and I thought that could be because there seemed to be like it was Moroccan or black blood in her. But in point of fact, I learned much later from Zetso, who was at the Brooklyn Museum Art School and kind of took care of Mimi, that she was part Mexican and part Chinese. And Mimi eventually went to California to live with a niece. The last I heard of her, and we were going to do a painting when she was 90, she was 70 years old in this painting. She had had a leg amputated, whatever had happened, and then she died, and that's it. But I called her the Queen of Models. Now, perhaps we should say some things about the painting itself. I discovered a great many things in this painting. I painted her, and she would say, "Deek, Deek, the head is too small." And I would say, "No, Mimi, I've measured it all out. I've measured it out. I've got it exactly right." And I had it exactly right. I was trained with Edwin Dickinson. I didn't miss on things like that. And the fact of the matter is that one fine day I just took the charcoal out and I made the whole darn thing bigger, and I made it 10 times bigger than I thought it would be, and it was what, right. And how is it right? It feels right. All the measurement in the world won't make it right. So that's the way it went, and I remember I got down into the far leg. Now, it doesn't look far when you're looking at the painting. It's only 6 inches behind that one, I suppose. But the fact of the matter is I had it drawn all wrong. And when I had it in the drawing stage, and even in the underpainting stage, I had to extend and make the leg bigger and rework the position of the foot. I had to do all kinds of things in order to make what? I guess what I was making was an anatomically functional figure. But that term never occurred to me. It just occurred to me that when I was making this painting, if I hadn't made that leg bigger, I would have made it looking like a dwarf leg in relative to that leg, do you see? Not functioning. Just like the head, if I hadn't made the head figure, I'd have a little pygmy head on top of the body. So I made a discovery of something in this painting, which I spent my life working with. A couple of years ago, when this painting was exhibited in the Century Association, a show of nudes at the Century, Sidney Offutt, who was a writer and was president of the Century at that time, I was explaining to him about the fact that Mimi had this life and grief and death of a husband and so forth, and this look came over him and the light went into his eyes. And this man has written a tremendously fine autobiography. And he said, I never realized that the body could be a biography. In a way, that's a kind of the beginning of this whole idea of the show exhibition that we're having, you see, is that the human being, not as the idealized figure of a young person and a goddess or a god, but as an actual human being with a biographical story to tell.